Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. This is our first cancer dietitian webinar of 2025. So I am excited to be kicking off a new year, and I hope you all are too. So my name is Julie, and I am the Community Engagement Director at Cancer Services Incorporated. We are a local nonprofit agency in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I have been working at Cancer Services for almost 17 years, not quite, but almost. And I am the author and creator of cancerdietitian.com, and Cancer Services helps to make sure that cancerdietitian.com is available for you as cancer survivors or caregivers or somebody who's interested just in reducing risk for cancer. It is available to you, anyone, for free. We are able to offer these webinars, and I have some other online programming to you at no charge because of the generous donors of Cancer Services. So I have plans to offer webinars every other month in 2025. So this is our first one. The next one will be in March. And then if you happen to be local to the Winston-Salem area or you just like to travel, I do in-person cooking classes as well. I have not ventured into trying to broadcast those, but it is actually a possibility because I have a new space that we're doing these cooking classes in that potentially I can hook into the system there. So maybe we'll broadcast the cooking classes over Zoom as well sometime in the future. But anyway, if you are local, I will be offering those on the alternate months. So in February, I'll do a daytime class, and then in April, I'll do an evening class. So I hope that some of you I get to meet in person this year. So that's pretty much it. For those on live, you can enter any questions either in the chat, and I'll answer them during the webinar or at the end. And if you are watching this recording or listening to the podcast audio recording and you do have questions, you can reach me at julie@cancerservicesonline.org or julie@cancerdietitian.com. Our topic today is this good for me? Decoding food packaging that you find in wherever you purchase your food. So about me, I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, which means that I have a 4-year degree in nutrition from an accredited university. Actually, we now have to have master's degrees as well, and a internship, as well as passing a dietitian exam. And I'm a board certified specialist in oncology nutrition, which means that oncology is my specialty, and I do have to pass that exam every 5 years. So I am 1 year into my renewal. I took the exam again last year. I have a master's in public health from UNC Chapel Hill. I did my bachelor's degree from NC State, and I do have an executive certificate in nonprofit leadership from Duke University. So if you're anywhere near North Carolina, you know that I have now completed the triad of universities in the Raleigh and Chapel Hill and Durham area. So I don't have allegiances, I guess, to any. This is what we are going to cover for today. We'll talk about 3 things you need to know about nutrition and health, just as a reminder of kind of where my nutrition philosophy comes from, what I think is most important for you all to know, what nutrients are important for good health, because that's going to inform your buying decisions or your package reading decisions, and how food packaging can help us make nutritious choices. And then I'll end with daily habits to optimize health, because it really is about your habits or your pattern of eating more than any one individual food or food item that you do or don't eat in terms of promoting good health. So first off, we're going to talk nutrition and health. Number 1, no foods or nutrients can cure disease or cause disease just on their own. So the idea that there is one single nutrient, let's say sugar gets a bad name a lot of times, that will cause a disease. Some people have heard the myth that sugar feeds cancer. I call that one of the top cancer nutrition myths. Our bodies don't work that way. Just because you consume sugar does not mean that it is going to cause a problem in your body. It really has more to do with what is your overall pattern of eating, how much, what type of sugar are we talking about, how much of it, how does that balance with the rest of the nutrients that you take in your body? And then the same thing with the alternate. There's no magical, miracle food. I mean, wouldn't that make like three foods to always eat, and then you'd have magical good health? But it really is about your body's need for a variety of nutrients and consuming plenty of the nutritious foods to get good balance in your diet that helps promote health. So there's not one food that you have to eat or that you have to avoid. We know that the combination of foods in a mostly plant-based diet, I'm pointing out that it does not say in an eat only plants diet, although if you want to eat only plants, that is your choice. Certainly, if you only eat plants, that means you eat lots of plants. And we do want people to eat lots of plants, but you can eat lots of plants and include animal products in a healthy diet. But mostly plants is really important to maintain healthy cells. The reason is that phytochemicals or phytonutrients, phyto means plant, and in this context, chemical just means nutrients. So these are plant nutrients. And the more plants you eat, the more plant nutrients you get. That seems really basic, but that is why we encourage you to eat lots of plants, because your body needs these phytonutrients or phytochemicals. And there's no other place that you can get a good variety than just eating plant foods. And the evidence continues to show that minerals, vitamins, and phytochemicals that are found only in plants interact to provide extra cancer protection. Now, that doesn't mean that meat or dairy or other animal products don't have good nutrition. They do. They are good sources of protein. They are good sources of vitamins and minerals. They do not provide you with plant nutrients, because plants provide you with plant nutrients and animals provide you with nutrients, but they're not plant nutrients. Okay. And this is how I kind of, encourage people to think about their intake of plants, is that when you wake up in the morning, your phytonutrient meter is down at 0. So I put 2 here. If we had more time and I had like a dry erase board, we would go through a little participation example. But what I like to show people is, you wake up in the morning, your phytochemical meter starts at 0. Every time you eat plants or a plant food, it helps to build your phytonutrient meter. And the more you get, the better. So as I describe it, the typical American, they're trying their best. We're all busy and just trying to make it. They get maybe 1, 2, or 3 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, when we're recommending more like 8 or 10 servings. And then a healthy survivor or a nutritious eater would get between 8 and 10 servings, or 4 to 5 cups of fruits and vegetables a day. And that's just throughout your day, having lots of plants. When you eat plant foods, it builds your plant food meter. That's it. And the more you can get in, the better. You get plant nutrients from plants. We've covered that. I think you got it now. Number 2, it's from less processed foods. So the more it's processed, usually it takes away some of those nutrients. So when you go from brown rice to white rice, or you go from whole wheat flour to white flour, or enriched, that's kind of what it's called, that removes some of those phytonutrients. So it doesn't mean that eating white bread or white rice sometimes is not a good choice. I mean, it's fine if most of the time you're consuming those plants that have more phytonutrients in them. And then it says variety of colors. And that's why we say to eat the rainbow, not like the rainbow of Skittles, but eat the rainbow of plant foods, where when you get a variety of different plants that are different colors, that usually informs, like an easy way to inform you that you're getting a variety of plant nutrients, because different colors mean there's different plant nutrients present. So this is number 3. Your body prefers nutrients from food, not pills or powders or supplements or juices. Nutrients, they all work together much more efficiently than working on their own. So when you get nutrients in food form, and you get fiber, and you get beta carotene, and you get isoflavones, and you get vitamin C, and you get all these things packaged together in the food, you get that perfect sort of combination of nutrients in the proportion that your body can best tolerate, absorb, and utilize. When you take nutrients in like juice or powder or pill form, it is usually just a few nutrients and a very highly concentrated version of those nutrients. So when you look at a not a food label, a supplement label or something that's like powdered or juice version, you look on there and you see, oh my gosh, look at all that vitamin C, how amazing. But what is missing is fiber. And we want your body to get vitamin C and fiber in that lovely combination that comes in like an orange or a carrot or a green pepper versus trying to somehow get all your nutrients by taking a variety of different pills. I would call the processed versions of food, we say don't eat anything that's too processed. Well, pill form of nutrition is probably the most processed form you could get. But there are appropriate times that you would use nutrition supplements or pills or powders or, juices or the box or the canned drinks that can be a meal replacement sometimes. And the cases for those are typically when you're in seasons, maybe a season of cancer treatment where you're not able to eat well, and that's your best option to get your nutrition in. That's when things like Boost or Ensure or Carnation Instant Breakfast are really helpful. They might not be real food per se in terms of, it doesn't grow on a plant. However, it will help meet your nutrient needs for that season of time that you're struggling. So there's nothing wrong with utilizing that. The other time that pills and nutrition supplements are useful is if you have a deficiency. So if you have low nutrient levels because, you've noticed something feels off, you go to the doctor, they check your labs and they say, oh my gosh, your vitamin D is low, or your iron is low, or your potassium is low, or your magnesium is low, whatever it is. Oftentimes you're getting labs done frequently if you're somebody who's in regular treatment or having regular checkups. And so, reading over your labs and understanding what that means is important. And for any nutrients that are checked, you want to see, hey, how's that going? If it's low, you may need to take a nutrition supplement because it's difficult to get the volume of that particular nutrient out of food enough to raise you out of a deficient situation. So while we don't typically want you to consume highly concentrated, versions of nutrients in pills, it is useful when you have a deficiency, or perhaps you're taking a medication that tends to cause your lab levels to be lower. And so they may say, as a preventive while you're on this treatment, or if you have a certain condition where you're at risk of being deficient, they may go ahead and suggest that you take a supplement. That's the use of supplements. It should not be something that you just take because you feel like it's necessary. If you want to take a multivitamin that's like a brand name that's, something you trust, I think that's fine. I don't usually tell people to take a multivitamin every day. If you want to take something because it makes you kind of feel like, oh, that's my insurance policy, I think that's fine. I probably wouldn't take a whole multivitamin every day because assuming you're eating, you really don't need 100% of everything. Maybe you take one every other day, or maybe you take, break them in half. Sometimes they're kind of large. That to me is a common sense way to utilize supplements so that you can, get most of your nutrition from food, but then maybe top off your stores with a supplement. The other, specifically around cancer survivorship, there are a fair number of people who've had treatments that might cause their bone health to be challenged. And so for a lot of times, people are recommended to take calcium in order to support bone health. And I also want to remind you, there's lots of other nutrients that do support bone health, and that weight-bearing exercise is also really important to build bone. So again, it's not one thing. It's not like calcium is the only thing that's important to build your bones. You need to have adequate protein intake. You need to be doing weight-bearing exercise. You need to also have vitamin K and potassium and magnesium and vitamin D to help those bones stay strong. So really getting that comprehensive approach to your nutrition status is important. All right, so bottom line, the way I approach nutrition is to understand that eating is your opportunity to promote your health. That eating food basically is your way of getting your body the nutrients it needs to function. Um, so, that said, the key things that your body needs are phytochemicals. So, those are plant nutrients. Fiber also only comes from plants. Vitamins, minerals, and hydration, which is your fluid intake. Those are like the keys that you need. And then I would also, throw calories in there. Calories and meeting your calorie and protein needs is really important. So that leads us to understanding what's in your food, right? Because we don't grow all the food we eat. Some of us don't grow any of the food we eat. Probably most of us don't grow any of the food that we eat. It's fun to grow food, but it's hard work. So thank you, anybody who's a farmer or knows a farmer or anybody who works in the agriculture industry. They need to be thanked because we don't grow our own food much anymore. That means we rely on the food production system to offer us what we need for adequate nourishment and helping to maintain good health. So that means you go to the grocery store to know what you're getting. So what is in my food? First of all, the ingredient list is the most important tool I think that you have in understanding what is in the food that you're buying. I don't start with the nutrition facts label. I start with the ingredient list. And what you want to know out of the ingredient list, it's pretty simple. First of all, read it and read it without, you don't have to, you know, evaluate everything that's on the list right away. Just to read it and see if it makes sense to you. What you're looking at when you read an ingredient label or list is that they are how the food basically by weight it's put in order. So the first thing in the ingredient list is the heaviest item. So things that are very liquid, water is heavy. And so that's typically the first ingredient or the second ingredient. But they are listed in order for what is used in the greatest amount to the least amount, and that is by weight. Then I always say use some common sense. Choose items whose first ingredients are nutritious foods. Like, I'm not telling you that you have to only eat nutritious foods ever, or that the food items that you buy, the ingredient list should somehow only be nutritious foods. But when you're looking at the first few ingredients, which means this is what this food is mostly made out of, you're gonna want to recognize what it is. Like, it should make sense. If it's bread, it's going to be flour, right? Or if it is, let's say, veggie chips, okay, then we're going to want to see that the first ingredients are veggies. And usually veggie chips are not actually made out of veggies. So you got to look at it. I got tricked, actually, and we still do buy them. But originally I thought they were, I can't remember what they're called. They're like pea crisps or something like that. And they look like snap peas, like freeze dried snap peas. So I thought that's what we were buying. And then eventually I read the ingredient list and I was like, oh my gosh, these are just things that are pressed into a shape that looks like a pea. And I think it was made out of some kind of, pea flour or whatever. So it did not have the same amount of fiber as a regular snap pea. So you really do want to, it doesn't matter what the fancy, pretty packaging outside of the packaging looks like, because that's all marketing. And we all know that marketing is about sales, and sales is about getting your money, because food companies exist as profit. Okay. These are not nonprofit food companies out there just wanting to help you have better health. As much as wouldn't that be nice? It'd be nice if we were like, oh, these are just all these food companies. They're just here to help improve our health. This is a lovely, existence. Unfortunately, or fortunately, maybe if you work for those food companies, they make products that are going to turn a profit. So speaking of farmers, like, we want farmers who grow fruits and vegetables to be able to make a living off of producing food, because those are the foods that really we want to eat most of. But when something has an ingredient list, The packaging on the front that you usually see when you walk down the aisles are pretty and fancy and draw your attention, and don't get tricked. You want to turn it around on the back and read the ingredient list. Use your common sense. And here's my other sort of caution to you. There are a lot of people who want to make you afraid of ingredients in the food products. Part of the reason that there's a lot of fear around that is because one product line wants to compete against another product line. And they will basically try to scare you that the other product has an ingredient in it that's going to cause problems for you. And therefore, you shouldn't buy that other product. You should buy this product. So they will sometimes slap those kinds of things on the front of the packaging to make it look more nutritious. And they say things like organic, or they say things like non-GMO, or they say things like no antibiotics used ever. And usually when they throw those, or low fat or low carb or no added sugars or all those types of claims that are on the outside of the label, no artificial ingredients ever, it does not mean that artificial ingredients are bad. It doesn't mean that genetically modified foods are bad. It doesn't mean that organic foods are good or better than conventional foods. And it doesn't mean that sugar's bad or fat's bad or whatever. It just means that they are trying to convince you to spend your hard-earned dollar on their product instead of the other product that's in the aisle. Do not get distracted by that. The other thing is, there are some people will say, if you can't pronounce something on the ingredient list, then you shouldn't eat it. And I think that's a little bit insulting to our intelligence, because there are weird words for perfectly healthy things. So like the word chemical, it's just, there's nothing wrong with chemicals in your food, because guess what? Water is a chemical, H2O. Beta carotene is technically a chemical. It can be added to a food, or it can occur naturally in a food. If it occurs naturally, good. If it is added, it also functions just like beta carotene. So it is not bad to add beta carotene. Or vitamin C is known as ascorbic acid. Well, that's a weird word, isn't it? If you saw it listed on an ingredient list, could you pronounce ascorbic acid? Maybe not. I've had to look at it enough times. There are all kinds of food ingredients or food additives that are perfectly safe. I wish I think I have it here in my home office, but I went to one of these websites where you can look up what different food ingredients are, and I printed out all the ones that they say to avoid. So, and my last bullet point here, it says you can look it up. Chemicalcuisine.org is kind of where I looked first. And you can search by whatever's in your food. So say there's something in there you don't recognize. Like the first couple ingredients, you're like, oh, this is so great. I think I have, rice and peas and corn in this food, and you're feeling good about it. And then you see a few other ingredients on there and you're like, well, what's that? What is that going to do to me? And so you can go to chemicalcuisine.org. They may have an app as well. You can put in what is that ingredient that you're wondering about. And it will tell you, it'll give you these, it's really handy. Like red X means we don't recommend it. It doesn't mean that you can never have it. Like there's plenty of things that we all do that is risky. Unless you have like a true allergy or a sensitivity to something, we can tolerate all types of things. Even if it has a red X, when you look at chemicalcuisine.org, like I think red dye 40 is something they say, don't ever eat that. I do not consume it very often, but if I'm somewhere and like, whatever, I'm just going to consume it because it's the only option that's there. I don't think it's going to cause a major problem to do it once in a while. But I think it is helpful to know, okay, what are the things that the group, it's the Center for Science in the Public Interest, says are like red X, don't eat these if you don't have to. And I printed it out, and it was like 1 page front and back list. And then I went on and I printed out the list of all the food additives that they say are perfectly safe. So it has like a green button next to it or something, like green circle. And the number of food ingredients or food additives that they ranked as perfectly safe was like 8 pages. versus the food additives that they say probably you don't want to consume, which was 1 page. So that's just to kind of encourage you to not get too caught up in some of the food fights around what's in our food. And if you can't pronounce an ingredient, then it's not good for you. Again, I think that is completely ridiculous. I think that we should be informed consumers. So that means read the ingredient list. If you don't know what something is, look it up and see how it's ranked. And don't let other people sort of scare you into things. So I have had people show me apps on their phone where they're like, oh, I just scan a food product and then this app tells me that, it's good or bad or whatever. My problem with those is that those are usually created by somebody. I mean, they're always created by somebody, but you want to find out who it is, because a lot of times there might be a food company who's created it, a food company who wants, to make you think that certain food additives are bad because their competitors use them. Or it might be somebody who's well-intentioned, but maybe not so science-based. And so they tend to maybe promote a certain way of eating that we might not consider evidence-based. That's fine if you want to follow them, but I think that you should know if, the who's creating these sort of okay lists or avoid lists. So chemicalcuisine.org is done by the Center for Science in the Public Interest. They are a nonprofit. They hire dietitians and healthcare providers and scientists to help make sure that the information they send out is vetted and science-based. And they have a print newsletter that I love. I've been getting for years. And yes, I still get the print version because I like to look through it. And I find it very helpful and very consumer friendly. So it's not overwhelming or too sciencey where you're like lost in what it is they're saying. And then foodinsight.org is another good organization to look for regarding food packaging, ingredient list, and understanding what's in your food. All right, so that's the ingredient list. Next, then is when I move over and look at the nutrition facts label. So the things you want to look for: identify a serving size. Notice what nutrients the food item is high in, which means it's over 20% of the daily value, or low in, which is less than 5%. Remember that calories are not bad for you. Calorie is a unit of energy. So if something is, quote, low calorie, I translate that to it's a low energy food. Do you want a low energy food? That is like, I don't think so most of the time, but maybe sometimes you do. So calories aren't bad. That's the bottom line. They're just a unit of energy, and you want to be sure to provide your body with the right amount of calories. So just because it says low calorie does not mean it's good for you necessarily. Okay, so this is what the typical nutrition facts label looks like. So it is based on serving size. So that's why I say always look at the serving size, because it's a math lesson for you. All the other numbers on this food label are per serving. So it's very handy if it's 1 serving per container. But if you are getting something that, has 3 servings in the container, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to eat this whole container, then you just multiply everything by 3. So for example, this particular food, I honestly I'm not sure what this food is. But it has 220 calories. Let's say there were 3 servings, or you're going to eat 3 of these. Then that's 660 calories, which is totally appropriate for a meal. I don't know if this food item is something you would eat for a meal. The other things that you want to look at is, I mentioned the percentages. If it's less than 5% or 5% or less, then it's considered low in. And if it's 20% or more, it's considered high in. And you will need to translate whether you want something that's low or high in any particular thing. So I would tell you this item is low in saturated fat because it's 5% or less. It is high in fiber because it's 21%. And it is high in potassium because it's 20% of your potassium. And then everything else kind of falls in the middle range. And the things that I look at on the food label is to keep saturated fat and trans fat lower. It doesn't mean that you have to avoid them completely, But it's handy that the food label does break those down. Sodium, you don't want to be too high. So anything, that's not too high is helpful. And you also have to remember in the context of a whole meal, how much. Fiber we want high. So this one is high in fiber, and typically we want that unless, let's say you're somebody in treatment and you're having GI issues, diarrhea or whatever, you might not want fiber, right? Or let's say you have a sensitive gut and there's certain types of fiber you're trying to stay away from. Those are things you want to know and that you look at the nutrient facts label for. And then limiting added sugar. As I said before, sugar is not evil. It has a role to play. We want it in balance. And a lot of food items have added sugars to make it taste good so that you like the product, so that you keep buying it. So finding the things that taste good that have moderate amounts of added sugar, I think, is a reasonable thing to go for. And it's very handy because on the food nutrient facts label now, they list added sugars. In the past, it had been hard to figure out if something was a natural sugar or an added sugar. So those are the things that I look for on the nutrition facts label. I do have, I think, a really great point that is in the chat here. I'm going to read it out loud. So somebody who says, I'm a 2-year cancer survivor and went to her primary care physician when she started having menopausal symptoms, although she was postmenopausal. And the doctor's diagnosis was that she was malnourished. And she said that was an eye opener because I always thought I was a healthy eater. Have worked on this by eating more nutrient rich foods. And I mean, kudos to your primary care doctor, because a lot of healthcare providers don't get that nuance of, weight loss is not always a good thing. And just because somebody appears on charts to have a quote healthy weight does not mean that they are actually nourished. And some of us have larger bodies. It's just natural to us that we would have a larger body. So just because somebody is, at what a healthcare provider might see on a chart as a healthy weight does not mean that they are, fully nourished. And so I think that it's awesome that you and your PCP encouraged you to eat more nutrient rich foods. Because you can meet needs just barely with junk food or with not so healthy foods. But really what your body needs is lots of good nutrition. So making sure to focus on nutrients rather than, limiting calories or avoiding this or avoiding that. The point of eating is to nourish our body. So let's find the nourishing foods. All right, so we talked about, let me see, 1 was the ingredient list, 2 is the nutrition label. And then the third thing you need to know when you're grocery shopping or when you're evaluating a food label is, what food group does this go into? Does it fit into multiple food groups? Maybe it's like a soup. Soup might have protein, it might have vegetables, and it might have a grain in it. And then how will it fit into your day? Like, how does it support a healthy, nutritious eating pattern? And is it a meal or a snack? That is the other question that I would pose as you're evaluating things at the grocery store or food labels. Because you might be looking at a nutrition facts label or an ingredient list on something that you're going to have for a snack, and it might be appropriate for a snack. It may not be appropriate for a meal, or it might be appropriate for a meal and not appropriate for a snack. So kind of thinking through those things. And I show this picture here. This is a plate. And generally, this is the ratio of types of food groups that you want to have in your day or your week or your month or your overall eating pattern, which is you've got half your plate covered in fruits and vegetables, quarter of your plate with some kind of whole grain, quarter of your plate with protein. It has a dairy, the cup of milk on there. Typically, I just lump dairy in with the protein corner. I kind of just make it even. But milk, it comes in a cup, so they want to put it on the side. I would just include dairy into your protein portion. And to me, it's like generally you got half the plate with fruits and vegetables, a quarter of the plate with grains, and a quarter of the plate with your protein foods. So this is a reminder. If some of you maybe haven't been as tuned in to what counts in what food groups, this is your reminder of what fits in what food groups, okay? So we have raw vegetables, smoothies that have vegetables in them, cooked vegetables, freeze-dried vegetables, assuming you're not tricked by some of the ones that look like freeze-dried vegetables, but they're actually just like powdered vegetables that are baked into a shape, and 100% vegetable juice. So I do count 100% vegetable juice as a vegetable. I would tell you it's better if you can get, the whole food version. But once a day, if you want to have juice for a serving of vegetables, that's fine with me. Same with fruit. Where is our fruit? I like to do fruits and vegetables together, so I'm going to do that. So our fruit, whenever possible, you want to choose fresh and dried or freeze-dried. Again, 100% fruit juice is fine for like one serving a day. Fruit cup, applesauce, fruit smoothie. So usually your green smoothie has fruit and vegetables in it. Dried fruit, fresh fruit, all count as fruit. For your protein, we have, quite a wide variety. You can get protein as a vegan or somebody who does not eat animal products, or you can be somebody who includes animal products in your eating pattern. Either way is fine, but you need to get enough protein. So if you're not a meat eater or you don't eat animal products, it is a little bit harder to meet your protein needs, but you can do it. So eggs, cheese, yogurt, milk, meat, those are all the animal-based proteins. And then nuts and nut butters, hummus or bean dip, protein bars, depending on how they're made. Those are your options for plant-based proteins. Tuna salad, chicken salad, canned fish, deli meat, those are all ways that you can get protein into your day. And then our starch or our carbohydrates, choose whole grain when possible, but sometimes you may not because it's not possible, and that's fine. As long as mostly whole grains, then you're probably doing fine, assuming you're eating enough fruits and vegetables, because the whole grains do give you extra fiber and more nutrition. If you're eating plenty of fruits and vegetables, you're going to get your fiber needs there too. And so that gives you more flexibility with having some refined grains sometimes. So whole grains, or grains in general, starches, granola bar, cereal, Big Newton, bread or bagel, pretzels, crackers, chips, popcorn. Those are all different types of starches. All right. So what should be in your cart when it comes to grocery shopping? Mostly what we want are colorful, nutritious, plant-based foods, right? So a variety of fresh or frozen fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds give you plenty of vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, fiber, antioxidants, all the things that promote health to give you a good nutrient-dense diet. And quite honestly, a lot of those things that you buy at the store are not going to have ingredient lists because you don't need an ingredient list for a head of broccoli because the ingredient list is broccoli. So, it seems silly, but if most of your cart is filled with fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, legumes or beans, right? Nuts and seeds, you are not going to have a lot of ingredient lists to read. And that's handy. Granted, it is challenging to eat that way because it takes a lot of time to prepare it. So I love to use the hacks. And I feel like food companies are doing a better job of getting us hacks that help us still eat a nutritious diet. My number one favorite sort of vegetable hack is the salad kit, because it is so easy to make a salad when somebody has cut up all the vegetables and provided toppings and even gave you a little pouch of dressing. So I like that. You can make your own basically salads at home like that. I've done that as well. I make, 5 salads for a week and I have my dressings and the toppings, but it sure is lovely when you just buy it already chopped up. So having those ways, even frozen fruits and vegetables, they're chopped up, but generally that's all they are. So if you pick up a bag of frozen spinach, chopped spinach. You want to make sure that's what's in there. You read the ingredient list. It should say spinach, period. Like that's it. No other things needed, because the frozen foods are preserved by the freezing process, where when you get canned, it's going to have something in it that keeps it from spoiling. So it will have salt added. Salt is perfectly fine in moderation. So there's nothing wrong with using canned fruits and vegetables either. You just want to kind of have that right balance. All right, so their daily habits really are the most important thing when it comes to a nutritious diet, and how you use packaged foods to help support good, healthy habits is what this is all about. So I encourage you to use, these tools of the ingredient list and the nutrition facts label to help make it easy, practical, and possible for you to have these good, healthy daily habits. Because your food intake pattern is much more important than any individual foods you do or don't eat. And that's kind of how I started, right? You want to aim to offer your body plenty of plant nutrients each day. And so my general guide for all of this is, first of all, you want to consume 4 to 5 cups of fruits and vegetables on a daily basis whenever possible. 1 cup of fruits with breakfast, 1 cup of vegetables with lunch and a fruit, 1 cup of vegetables with dinner and a fruit, and then including fruits and vegetables with snacks throughout the day will get you to that total. You want to spread your protein throughout the day. 15 to 35 grams at meals is sort of my goal. Now, most people actually blow way past that if they're meat eaters. So finding that right ratio of foods on your plate helps to bring the protein into balance and to usually boost up the vegetables to the point where we feel like that's the right pattern. I think this is really important for those of you who are meat and dairy eaters, and I am as well, is that we include beans, nuts, or seeds at least once a day. And all the healthy eating guides, they encourage beans, nuts, or seeds at least once a day. And so I do. I mean, it's pretty easy to grab a handful of nuts, or I've learned from these salad kits, like you throw some sunflower seeds on a salad, it's really fun. So finding ways, or beans, we had like a bean chili. I have a crock pot chili recipe on my website that's really delicious and easy. Gets you beans. If you're eating meat, a small portion is adequate to meet the needs. Nutritious carbs, of course, really important. Include carbs at most meals and snacks. I am not a fan of low carb, keto, whatever the latest fad is about cutting out carbs. I don't think that that's healthy for your body. Your body needs carbohydrates for good health. Fiber is a carbohydrate. Nobody wants low fiber because that's going to give you some, GI distress. So finding 100% whole grains or minimally processed starchy vegetable. A general guide is to have carbs on 1/4 to 1/3 of your plate, or 15 to 30 grams at snacks. So if you're looking at granola bars, 15 to 30 grams of carbs would be reasonable. Fluids matter. Your body needs water, so but if your taste buds want a little bit of flavor, unsweet tea, unsweet coffee does give you plant nutrients without excess added sugar. Sparkling water, diluted juice, low-fat milk are also options for flavor without added sugar. And then if you want to have added sugar a couple times a week, like a soda or a sweet tea, it's not really that big of a deal as long as it's not a regular habit. When we say limit added sugars, it's because that there are a lot of Americans who are consuming basically added sugar beverages, like with breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. So if you have added sugar a couple times a week in your drink, I say if you do it 3 times a week or more, it's a habit. So let's get it to 2 times a week or less. And there you go. But that's Julie's rule. Ways to add more phytonutrients is to add flavor to your food. So I prefer that you buy when you're at the grocery store, wherever you're shopping. It could be online. I am currently a Walmart Plus subscriber, and no, they don't pay me to even say that, but I love having my groceries dropped on my front door. So we go to the grocery store sometimes, and then a lot of times if we're meal planning, I'm throwing it in the cart. When you are on your grocery apps, it's actually almost easier to read when you look at the product and it'll tell you the ingredients and it'll tell you all those things. So I prefer to buy the unflavored versions of things, say yogurt, or kefir, or like applesauce or whatever. You find even cereals. I'm going to buy Cheerios. If I want honey and nuts on my Cheerios, I'm going to buy plain Cheerios and I'm going to put honey and nuts on it, not Honey Nut Cheerios, which doesn't actually have nuts or honey in it. Okay, so you buy the unflavored version, then you flavor them yourself at home. And that way you can control how much of what type of flavoring goes in. Like, is it fake flavor or real flavor? Is it strawberry flavor? Oh, you got strawberry flavor by adding strawberries. That's very nutritious, right? Versus, oh, you got strawberry flavor because they added a fake strawberry flavor. That's not helping us get our fruits in. Putting strawberries on your cereal does help you get your fruits in. So, and then the same thing with herbs and spices. When you use herbs and spices, either dried, shaking it on your food, those are plants that you're adding, and that gives you more nutrients. So I think it's really great to get the plainest version you can handle and then flavor it yourself at home. It typically saves money that way. I buy yogurt in like larger containers and then I'll scoop it into smaller containers and add whatever flavoring I need. Sometimes plain yogurt I'll use as sour cream, or I'll add a little bit of sugar or fruit to it to turn it into some, a sweet yogurt. The other thing that I've started doing is instead of buying a cereal that has almonds in it, that typically there's barely any almonds, in there, I have started buying just kind of plain cereals. And then I buy sliced, roasted almonds in a pack. I pour my cereal, I pour my almonds, I put my fruit in there. And so it gives me more almonds and it helps recommendation about protein and eating nuts. All right, so these are the key take-home points from today's topic, which is include plants in your meals and snacks as much as you can, read your ingredient list, and skim the nutrition facts label. And then if you're concerned about a particular ingredient, look it up. You don't have to be afraid of it. You don't have to immediately be like, oh no, what is this? You can just use a level head and some common sense and look up why is it in there? What's it used for? Is there any proof that it causes any trouble? A lot of times it doesn't. Maybe you find something and you don't want to consume it. And that helps you inform, okay, I don't want that version. Let me find a different one. So those are the keys in terms of the topic for today. I think that's all I have for content. If there are any questions, feel free to throw those in the Q&A or put them in the chat, but this is kind of the end of my prepared content for today's topic. I will say that we have our cooking class coming up in February, and it's at noon on Thursday, the fourth Thursday in February. So if any of you are local, you're welcome to join us. I think I'm going to do like quick and easy lunches and dinners. So food hacks or cooking hacks. And then I'll have another webinar come April. And I am currently posting on my website, cancerdietitian.com, once a week. We have the fruit and vegetable challenge going on. So we are getting close to the end of that challenge, but if you want to go back and look at any of the previous ones, it started December, I think 6th was week 1 of our Eat the Rainbow challenge, and it was posted every Thursday since then. Any questions? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Well, you know how to reach me. If you do have something that comes up, I encourage you all to just go over to your pantry right now, or if you have a snack anywhere near you, flip it over, read the ingredient list, do a search on what additives, and yeah, just stay informed. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.